Thanks to Paperlike for sponsoring a portion of this video. This is the all-new iPad Pro. Actually, oh, wait a sec. This is the all-new iPad Pro. Unless you are pixel peeping, have these laying screens down, or doing a side-by-side comparison of which iPad is on a slight diet, you cannot easily tell the difference between the new iPad Pro and the old iPad Pro, which I think begs the question, is the new one actually worth the upgrade? So I spent the money, so you don't have to. And after a bit of time with it, I've got some thoughts. And I think the iPad Pro might have kind of leaked Apple's plans for the iPhone 16 in a few big ways. Let me explain. So to be honest, I hadn't given much thought to the iPad Pro over the last few months. In all honesty, I kind of forgot that I even had an iPad. But after Apple's Let Loose event wrapped up, I was genuinely pumped for more iPads. If you've watched any of my TV videos or phone reviews on this channel, you know one thing about me, I love me some OLED screens. And since most of the time iPad is spent watching movies and TV shows, I was really happy to see the rumors of OLED iPads turn out to be true. And for me, that is the big story, and probably you too, with the new iPad Pros. And I'll come back to the thinness and the M4 in a minute, but I want to spend time talking about the screen, because this is, I think, really what you're paying for, because I had to shell out at least $1,000 for the new iPad Pro. And I should frame my reference here. My previous iPad, the one I joked that I kind of forgot about, was the 12.9-inch M2 iPad Pro. It was the one with mini LED. And coming from that to the new screen on the iPad Pro, I'm gonna be really honest with you. Maybe I'm gonna get flamed for this. I didn't notice much of a difference. Unless I was watching HDR content, then you could clearly see a difference. But if I'm just browsing the web, I'm just hanging out, watching a movie or something on Netflix, I've almost don't notice the difference between the screens. And that is a hard thing for me to admit. And if you look at it and you look at the pixels, you can definitely tell that the black levels are definitely blacker because they're off, they're not just shade of gray. Colors tend to pop a little bit more and definitely gets a bit brighter. But honestly, just doing normal iPad stuff indoors, I was hard pressed to see a difference. It was until I went to look at my kid's iPad Air that has an LCD screen. And this is gonna be true for any of the other iPads that had an LCD screens, whether it was the smaller iPad Pro from previous years or iPad Airs. From the LCD or Liquid Retina to what we have now with OLED, the difference is night and day, drastic. The first time you saw a movie in HD, that big a difference. So if your frame of reference is mini LED to OLED, not a huge jump, but if your frame of reference is LCD to OLED, all right, surprise of the year, it is a big change and a big difference. All right, so I want to take a moment to talk about the iPad Pro's design. Now, on Apple's own website, they tout this iPad as having an all-new Pro design, when in reality, essentially the same design they've had for the last 6 years. Apple marketing speak aside, I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing either, because it does seem like Apple kind of cracked the code back in 2018 and did a good job, and they've just been kind of slowly refining and iterating over the years to make the iPad Pro's design the best that it can be. Now, having said all of that, I still think those bezels are way too thick. When Steve Jobs got on stage and announced the original iPad, the whole idea was a piece of glass you can hold the internet in your hand. I think we've gotten much closer to that world, having the internet in your hand. But still, those big bezels don't scream the future to me. It screams the best version of what we have right now. And maybe that's me putting too much on Apple or putting too much of what I think the iPad could be. But if there's one area of the design that I could kind of nitpick, it would still be those bezels, which are very apparent. And especially apparent if you opt for the nano texture, because it's matte on the screen and the bezels are still shiny. All right, and speaking of nano texture, that was kind of one of the big announcements that Apple made. It actually was a surprise during the keynote. Not a lot of people saw that coming, but if you want to get it, you got to order it on the top end configurations of the iPad Pros. What if you have a lower end configuration, or you've got an iPad mini or an iPad Air and you want that matte look? You want your screen to feel like paper. Fortunately, the folks at Paperlike have you covered and are delivering just that at a fraction of what the nano texture will cost you. So it's gonna be compatible with more iPads too. So here I've got it on the iPad mini, which works kind of like a little notepad. But even if you've got an iPad Air, regular iPad, or previous gen iPad Pro, you can still get a paper-like screen protector that'll work with it. And it's exactly what you'd expect. It makes it feel like paper. It gives you a paper-like experience. And Paper-like 2.1 has been around since like October 2022. This is a tried and true technology. And you get the things you'd expect. So it's gonna feel more like paper when you're writing. If you take your iPad outdoors, you're going to have less glare. And generally it's going to give you a sort of a nanotexture-esque experience at a fraction of the price. It could also potentially be the best of both worlds. If you want that glossy screen, you have that option. When you want to put paper-like on, you can pick one up, slap it on, and now you've got a nanotexture matte-like screen for you. So you can kind of bridge those worlds if you want. If you want to learn more about Paper-like or place your order for the new iPad Pro screen sizes like I did, which are shipping soon by the way, be sure to click the link down below. All right, so my biggest, if you can even call it an issue, with the new iPad Pro is performance. Not that the iPad Pro isn't powerful enough, it's actually the exact opposite. The M4 here is just straight up too powerful. I think it exposes what Apple fans and iPad users have been saying for years. The iPad's greatest weakness is software. The hardware is still too good, and it's like a broken record at this point with iPads. I have never once experienced a situation where any modern iPad Pro felt slow, and now that Apple put the M4 chip inside of here, it's faster, it's more powerful, more versatile than ever before, which is great if the software can live up to the potential and utilize that power. Now to be clear, this isn't to say that there aren't people using the iPad Pro to its full potential, but I'd argue the vast majority of those people are hamstringed by iPadOS and poor attempts Apple has made to toe the line between keeping it focused on being a tablet-oriented device while also trying to have kind of Mac-like functionality. A friend of the channel and friend of mine, Quinn Nelson, had a video on social where he was just trying to open two instances of an app in the same window on an iPad, and it was a frustrating experience. I think that kind of sums up what using the iPad as a computer is like. It can do what you want, but almost every task you have to change how you do it to suit the iPad instead of the hardware suiting what you want to do. And that is still, I think, one of the biggest things holding the iPad back. There is power for days. It's thin, it's light, it's powerful, it's got a beautiful screen, but it is still best suited for content consumption, and content creation still seems like a secondary afterthought. I know I say this every year, but I'm hoping that this is the year Apple cranks things up a notch with iPadOS. WWDC is coming soon, and I'm crossing my fingers that sort of the software finally lives up to the hardware. It's also where we should see Apple tout a smarter Siri, the new AI features they went out of their way to couple with the new M4, highlighting how the M4 is the best processor for AI tasks. And I feel like every year I'm like, this is the year, iPadOS is gonna get better. I'm like a guy holding an umbrella outside every day in case it rains. One day it will rain, and one day I'll be right. And I'm hoping I'll be right when WWDC hits. There's also something else to consider. This new iPad Pro, if you know where to look, gives us a bit of a sneak peek into what Apple could be planning for the iPhone lineup later this fall. And it is very clear that Apple is putting emphasis on screen tech, larger screen sizes this year, which confirms rumors of a bigger screens coming to some iPhone 16 models. And despite what comments might say, Apple has clearly realized that mini is not the way to go. Most consumers, at least what they're buying, want larger screens, which is why the iPad Air now comes in a 13-inch screen size, when the iPhone 16 Pros will get larger as well. And current rumors suggest that Apple wants to increase the size on the Pro models this year, bumping them up from the 16 Pro from 6.1 to 6.3 inches, Pro Max going from 6.7 to 6.9 inches. You've also got to wonder if these bigger screens will finally give Apple the excuse they've been looking for to bring Apple Pencil support to the iPhone Pros. And I know the old argument that Steve Jobs famously mocked the stylus when he introduced the very first iPhone, but that was 2007, that was a long time ago. And given that Samsung has proven it can work, and given all of Apple's hype around the Pencil Pro, maybe Apple finally caves and adds this in as a new Pro-like feature. And just like the iPad screens are an omen of things to come, I think Apple embracing a familiar design tells us what we need to know with the iPhone 16 lineup. It's gonna be more of the same, but the biggest cosmetic changes be a couple of new buttons and a kind of a different camera orientation for the iPhone 16 and 16 Plus. Apple is not going to give us a total redesign. Kind of got me thinking here, bear with me, on a wild theory. I'm not gonna say this is going to happen, but given all the emphasis on AI we're hearing Apple is going to focus on with iOS 18 and the iPhone 16 lineup, I wonder if this could be the year that Apple finally is bringing M4 down to pro-level iPhones. I know this is like putting like a Ferrari engine in say an old Honda Civic, beyond overkill. But given how Apple gushed about its AI capabilities, I can't kind of help but wonder if this is when they sort of unify the lineup and bring true desktop level Apple silicon to the iPhone. Even if it's just a marketing angle to show M4 and AI go together like peanut butter and jelly. I don't know, just kind of random musings. So Apple also dropped a few other hints of things I think we could see in the iPhone 16, expansion of eSIM to more countries, a 2 terabyte option, increased space storage, maybe even center stage coming to iPhone. Whether those features happen or not, it's clear that this new iPad Pro is a sign of where Apple is headed next and kind of where they've been in the past. Refining already solid hardware, enhancing software experiences, and very swiftly laying the groundwork for AI features that could unlock entirely new workflows and possibilities. Does it live up to the hype and justify an upgrade? Hardware-wise, unless you want the best screen, it's probably not necessarily worth it, but a major iPad OS update that utilizes the M4 could absolutely change that. So I can't give you a full answer, at least not yet. Stay tuned.